All right, everybody. Hey, how you doing? I decided to build myself a little campfire, warm myself. It's late. It's a little cool. Well, actually, it's cold. It's colder than it should be for some reason. Anyway, I'm going to read chapter 8 to you. We did chapter 7 yesterday, Kimba decided to go for it. He's going for the tip of the one tusk, the very tip of the tusk that gored Rab. And Rab is lying, maybe going on his final journey, which means dying. We don't know. He's just in very bad shape. And Utrecht told Kimba that the only thing that will help save, will for sure save Rab, is the tip of the one tusk. He needs that piece. He needs that tip. So he's going to go for it all by himself. But along the way, he ran into that dog again. And weird things are going on. I mean, the dog isn't attacking him, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Wait till the dog gets hungry, I think. All right, so let's go on and read chapter 8 today. All right, tonight. It's tonight for me, but maybe you'll be watching this in the daytime. Soon, okay, so here we are, chapter 8. Soon Kimba no longer bothered to look when the dog strayed from his line of sight. Perhaps he thought it was not hungry. When it felt its appetite rising, then he might have cause to fear it. But somehow he did not think so. Surely it meant him no harm. Soon it would wander off and let him be. The wind grew stronger and sharper. On such a day, many scents were blown about. Kimba noticed the dog sniffing first the air, then the earth. It loped forward purposefully toward a bushy clump. A small antelope bolted out into the open. The dog gave chase. The antelope was swift, probably too swift for its pursuer, but the red speckled dog would not give up. Kimba remained motionless long after the two had disappeared among the trees. The dog would not return, he was sure. He need no longer guard against any abrupt change in its behavior. The knowledge that the dog had gone should have pleased him. It did not, he realized. It only made him more aware that he was alone. But he must not linger. He had his quest, and there was not a moment to lose. Kimba continued on, concentrating on the urgency of the task. He would begin his search where he had last seen the killer mammoth, the valley where the two tribesmen had perished. He made himself picture that long, deadly shaft of ivory. That's the tusk. The ivory is the tusk. And the mammoth's dreadful rampage. What could he do if he met the one tusk? What could he possibly do? Maybe he should have thought about this in the cave before he left, and now he's thinking about it. He was small and alone, and had yet to sink his spear into any wild creature. And he was hungry, tired, and the truth he had been avoiding dawned on him clearly, very afraid. Kimba touched the wolf tooth hanging about his neck, but he felt no wave of courage revitalizing his body. What could he possibly do, he asked himself again, even if he met the mighty one? He stopped, acutely conscious of how open to attack he was. He longed for the safety of the cave, for the security of the tribe. A cold wind rifled through the high grass like a prowling beast. It moaned in the distance like an angry, wounded animal. Personification, right? He had his spear, or we could say, personification. He had his spear, at least he reminded himself. It had been made for him by Rab, who had always defended and cared for him, and who now desperately needed his help. Kimba shrugged off his fears. After all, he had the power. Utrecht had so frequently told him so, and he believed he had felt it himself at times. Exactly what the power was or how to employ it still puzzled him. But since he had it, he must be greater in some way than the other hunters of the tribe. Where they failed, he could succeed, and he had to. It was Rab's only hope. With long, sure strides, Kimba approached the valley. He climbed the hillside from which he had watched the ghastly battle. His eyes swept the bowl-shaped terrain. 2 jackals flashed briefly into view. There was no other sign of a living creature. He went down the slope cautiously, intent on what might lurk below. So the large, bounding shape that hurtled past him from above caught him by surprise. His spear arm flew up, but he recognized at once what it was, the dog. A peculiar feeling of heightened confidence welled up within him. The red dog had returned. True, it virtually ignored him as it sped down the hill, swinging in first one direction, then another. Soon it would run off again, probably to be seen no more. But for now, it was back. There, he saw, were the 2 rock cairns that marked the graves of the tribesmen the One Tusk had sent on their final journey. The other hunters had done their best to protect the bodies from predatory animals and to pay their farewells to their kinsmen. Usually, there were solemn rites for sending hunters on their final journey. The bodies would be painted and Utrecht would pronounce special words to guide them on their way. But Utrecht had not been there when the hunters had been killed, and Kimba had not yet been instructed in conducting the proper rites for such an occasion. "Hunt well," Kimba now said softly. This was the custom when passing the burial place of fallen hunters. The moist earth of the valley floor was pitted in many places by the feet of the mammoths. It would not be a difficult trail to follow. He paced along beside the traces of the One Tusk. Its tracks were bigger than any of the rest of the herd. Here it had struck Rab. Here it had rushed at the hunters. Here it had driven its followers out of the valley. Kimba's fingers touched the outline of one of the One Tusk's tracks. It was larger around than the width of his circled arms. He plunged his spear into the footprints again and again, shouting, no matter the size of the One Tusk, it could not stand up to the power. The One Tusk had a day's start on him, Kimba reminded himself as he left the valley. The herd was headed toward the Forbidden Mountains, which were dark and hazy in the distance, but appeared to climb right to the clouds. If the mammoths had meandered slowly southward, stopping often to browse, they might not be far ahead. But if the One Tusk had taken alarm, the herd might be days away by now. He followed their trail intently until the sun sank over his right shoulder and turned from gold to red. He would not find them by nightfall, he realized, and he must not be overtaken by darkness, for then he would be easy prey. Then he would be of no more use to Rab or anyone else. He passed a tall pillar-like boulder. Kimba hesitated. The light had grown dim, and a deep chill was creeping up through the earth. Soon it would be impossible even to see footprints. It would be best to take no chances. He gathered a few twigs and boughs from some slender poplars, which is a type of tree, and dropped them inside a hollow area at the base of the boulder. Then with loose rocks, he built a small semicircular wall. He sat back on his heels and began striking a flint. What's he doing when you strike a flint? Striking a flint on a rock, trying to create a spark. He had solid support behind him with a fire to the front. He should be reasonably safe. So behind him is a big rock wall. He has a semicircular wall of smaller rocks, and then he has his fire right in front of him. The flint drew the sparks, and the sparks ignited the dried moss he had brought with him. The dog tensed, startled by the fire. It stared at Kimba suspiciously, then wandered off into the darkness. Kimba threw twigs onto the flames and soon had a satisfactory fire going. He banked the blaze with pieces of turf and allowed only one branch at a time to burn. The hunters had taught him never to build a large fire needlessly like I did. It wasted wood, and it might be seen by some whose curiosity was not to be encouraged. He wedged himself against the boulder and put the spear across his lap. Beyond his weak and smoky fire, darkness shrouded the land. High above, the first stars were appearing. Was someone, Kimba wondering, striking a flint up there in the heavens? Was that what the stars were? Small protective fires set by hunters in the far distance who huddled, as he did, in fear of the night and its terrors? I think it's amazing to think what early humans might have thought of the stars and the moon. We know what they are, but there was no way they could have known. He wished Utrecht would explain it to him. Sometimes the sorcerer would go to the mouth of the cave and study the night sky and nod approvingly. Other times he would gaze long and hard at certain stars and their distances from each other, and re-enter the cave shaking his head gravely. Then the members of the tribe too would look at each other in deep concern, knowing the signs were bad and they must ready themselves for the worst. Kimba stared a long while into the lazily crackling fire, then swung his eyes up once more to the stars. Some of them seemed to have moved a bit. They would remain steady while he studied them, but appeared to change their positions when he took his eyes away. Instead of being campfires, were they torches carried in some slow procession? And who carried them? Utrecht would know, but he might never see Utrecht again. He might never be given an explanation. The realization brought his attention back to his immediate surroundings. He laid another branch on the smudgy fire. He would have to sleep in snatches, waking often to be sure the blaze still burned. He dared not let it go out. So he can never have that deep REM sleep that we get, the sleep that you really need to revitalize your body for the next day. And he is probably tired out from all the hiking, everything he's been through. He's probably really cold, and so he has to wake up and keep that fire going so he's never attacked by an animal or a predatory animal. Drowsiness swept over him in a great rush. Kimba's hand slipped from the spear. His head rolled back against the base of the boulder. A muffled growl jerked him into wakefulness. He reached frantically for the spear. The fire he saw was almost dead. He heard the growl once more. It was just beyond the low wall of rocks. A vicious snarl answered the growl. Kimba realized it as the snarl of the red speckled dog. Suddenly there was a tumult of growling and snapping and thrashing about. The grappling bodies thudded against the rock wall, knocking it partway down. A howl split the night, and then there was silence. Above the pile of rocks, he saw the dog's huge head. Its jaws were open and its eyes glistening. The battle, Kimba knew, had been with a prowling direwolf. It had crept up close, waiting until the fire went out. The dog had slain the marauder in seconds, so the dog, killed a wolf right outside the fire pit. There was always this natural hostility between wild dogs and the direwolves. They looked much alike, and from a distance it was hard to tell them apart. They are of a kin, Utrecht had remarked, but they are different. And whatever the difference was, it would inevitably prompt them to kill each other on sight. Kimba scurried out, grabbed the dead wolf's legs, and hauled the carcass, the body, back into the enclosure. The chorus, or a chorus of high-pitched yowls, throbbed through the crisp night air. The rest of the wolf pack, rumbling from deep within its chest, the dog swung around to face the danger head on. Now that's a brave dog, but not against a wolf pack. Kimba poked a branch into the coals, but the stick was slow to ignite. The wolf pack edged closer. Now he could see the occasional glint of intently staring eyes. From his pouch, Kimba scooped out more of the kindling. He tossed it onto the fire and blew on the small tendrils of flame. The blaze suddenly flared, wood popping and sparks dancing. He was determined not to be caught unaware. He fed a large branch onto the fire. Before long, the wolf pack, whining and yowling, began to withdraw. Their eyes remained visible a long while. Then at last they faded into the darkness. Kimba quickly cooked the slices of loin he slashed from the slain wolf. He could scarcely wait for the heat to penetrate and char the meat. As he ate, he felt his body crying for sleep. but the wolves could always return. He could not relax his guard. They might be waiting for that. Waiting. And you need sleep more than ever before. People know now how important sleep is. Were they back? In confusion, he sat up. He realized he had dropped off to sleep again, and something big and furry touched him. Panic pulled him to his feet, and then he saw it was the dog. It had overcome its fear of fire to cross over the rock wall. It paid no attention to Kimba as it devoured the last of the meat he had roasted. It dawned on the boy that the dog had never eaten cooked meat before. It rolled its eyes up to Kimba, imploring, begging him for more. Kimba laughed. It was such a piteous, begging look from a beast that had just dared to face a pack of savage attackers. Like, this dog is tough. I mean, this dog is tough. And it's looking at Kimba, oh, please, can I have some more meat? He roasted more meat, threw it to the dog, and leaned back against the boulder. He could sleep now, he knew. The dog would awaken him if danger arose. The dog's presence meant new, undreamed of security. He was not alone anymore. That's pretty cool. Especially if you're a dog lover like me, you probably like that. The idea of, for maybe the first time in human history, a dog and a human making friends and mutually helping each other. That's good. All right, guys. Well, I better put a log back on this fire because it's starting to go down a little bit and I'm getting tired and cold. All right. Well, you guys take care. We'll see you tomorrow, and I'll read another chapter, see what happens in the morning, because we know tonight he's safe. Kimba and the dog are pretty safe. They're going to wake up in the morning and resume their quest to hunt down the one tusk. All right. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, the dog can just jump on the mammoth and kill it. No, the dog cannot kill the mammoth. Just letting you know. All right. We'll see you later. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.